And in order to make money, since finding a job was out of the question at my size, I chose to start fetish modeling for a website.
Of all the stories to come out of my 600-pound life, this one might just be the most disturbing. Because unlike other people on the show, Samantha was getting paid to eat. She built an online audience by filming herself binge-eating massive meals because that's what got her views and paid her thousands. Before she realized what she was doing to herself, the situation got so bad that she couldn't walk, couldn't shower, she couldn't even use the bathroom by herself. But she kept filming and eating. And then something terrible happened. Something that could end her life if she didn't act fast. And what she did to avoid it is shocking. Trapped by trauma and food addiction. It was the carrot cake video that changed her life. Not because it went viral, though it did, but because it was the moment Samantha Mason crossed a line she could never uncross. There she was, all 800+ pounds of her, using her own distended belly as a dinner table while she devoured an entire cake. The camera captured every moment, and somewhere on the other side of the screen, strangers were paying good money to watch her slowly kill herself. What most viewers didn't realize was that this wasn't rock bottom for Samantha. This was her job. By the time she appeared on season 9 of My 600-Pound Life, Samantha had already perfected the art of monetizing her own destruction. The fetish modeling industry had discovered her years earlier. She had discovered an audience that not only accepted her size and her eating habits, but actively encouraged her to get bigger. Every pound she gained made her thousands. Every meal she consumed on camera brought a flood of comments and subscription renewals. And how wouldn't it? She was consuming 10,000 calories in breakfast alone. People were fascinated by her eating habits. Samantha would start her day with piles of food that most families wouldn't finish in a week. She would eat 6 eggs, half a dozen sausage patties, a full pack of bacon, biscuits drowning in gravy, stacks of pancakes, layered with butter and syrup, and a 2-liter bottle of soda to wash it all down. That was just the starter. Sometimes she would eat a French toast or breakfast burritos if she felt like giving her audience something extra. It added up to over 10,000 calories, sometimes 15,000 before noon. And the worst part was that she did it all without moving much. Her body was too large and heavy for her to sit upright without gasping for air. So she ate while reclined, propped up with pillows, barely able to lift the fork to her mouth. After breakfast, she would often go back to sleep. Her body couldn't handle being awake for long. The food would sit in her stomach, pressing on her lungs. But still, when she woke up, there was always more waiting. Lunch, dinner, snacks, she would have endless deliveries throughout the day, and always a camera nearby. The psychology behind it was more twisted than you can imagine. Her viewers were investing in a gradual suicide, and they knew it. Some even sent specific meal requests, pushing her toward higher calorie combinations that would pack on weight faster. The more immobile she became, the more valuable she was to them. What made her case particularly heartbreaking for those of us who follow these stories was how it had started with such innocent origins. At 5 years old, Samantha Mason was just another casualty of a broken home. Her parents' divorce shattered her sense of safety. Her father's drinking problem turned their house into a war zone with verbal and physical abuse. For a small child trying to make sense of chaos, food provided the one constant source of comfort in her world. The numbers tell the story better than words ever could. A 150-pound 7-year-old is not just big for her age. She is carrying the weight of trauma that most adults could not handle. By 10, she had crossed 200 pounds, and the bullying that followed only reinforced what food had already taught her. That the world was hostile, but eating made everything temporarily better. School became unbearable for her. So by 17, dropping out seemed like the only option left. This pattern of trauma, food, isolation, and more trauma created a feedback loop that addiction specialists recognize all too well. Unlike substance abuse, where the drug can be eliminated from someone's life, food addiction forces its victims to maintain a relationship with their trigger 3 times a day, every day, forever. Samantha never got to go cold turkey. She never got to avoid temptation. Then came another crisis. She got pregnant at a young age and had a daughter. She named her Bella. The pregnancy with Bella should have been a turning point. New mothers often find motivation they never knew existed. Instead, Samantha used pregnancy as permission to surrender completely. The excuse of eating for 2 became eating for 10. She packed on another 100 pounds during those 9 months, reaching 500 pounds by the time Bella was born. The relationship that had created this new life couldn't survive the weight of Samantha's addiction. Her partner left 2 weeks after delivery, abandoning both mother and child. Then came the loss that broke everything open. Her father's death in that motorcycle accident arrived just as they had begun rebuilding their relationship. For Samantha, it felt like losing him twice. Once to alcoholism, once to fate. After his death, Samantha went into depression. She couldn't care for Bella, couldn't care for herself, couldn't see any point in continuing. When Bella moved in with her grandmother, Samantha interpreted it as confirmation of her own worthlessness. She tried to take her own life with the fentanyl patches, but she failed the attempt. Instead of treating that near-death experience as the wake-up call it should have been, she found a way to transform her condition into income. The internet has created a marketplace for every possible human experience, including the gradual self-destruction of a morbidly obese woman. What started as a desperate attempt to pay bills became a feedback loop where her worst impulses were enabled and financially rewarded. When Bella became an adult, she finally convinced her mother to consult Dr. Now. But until then, it was already too late. Dr. Now's warning and health crisis. By the time Dr. Now entered the picture, Samantha was facing several medical challenges. But the one that required immediate attention was her severe abdominal pain. It was discovered in the emergency room that she had kidney stones. But these stones were just the opening act. Her body was systematically shutting down under the crushing weight it had been forced to carry. While Samantha lay in that hospital bed connected to oxygen and struggling with basic bodily functions, she was simultaneously sabotaging her own life. She would order room service. Friends became her accomplices as they would bring her treats during visiting hours. Hospital staff watched in disbelief as delivery drivers arrived daily with bags of fast food. She had memorized the phone numbers of every restaurant within delivery range and rotated between them to avoid suspicion. When nurses tried to implement Dr. Now's prescribed diet, she panicked. The thought of eating only 1,200 calories felt like starvation to someone whose body had adapted to processing nearly 10 times that amount daily. The psychology behind this self-sabotage tells us that she lacked the willpower to control her addiction. Samantha knew exactly what the food was doing to her. She was fully aware that every meal was potentially her last. But knowledge means nothing when you are using food to regulate emotions. As expected, she gained more weight during hospitalization. Gaining 140 pounds while under medical supervision required a level of determination that under different circumstances might have been admirable. But in this situation, she was killing herself. When she talked to Dr. Now again, he was frustrated with her. He had seen thousands of patients struggle with food addiction, but Samantha's case presented a different challenge. She had an audience invested in her failure and a revenue stream dependent on her eating habits. Traditional intervention strategies assume the patient wants to get better, but that was not the case here. Some of the most painful moments came from watching Samantha's daughter, Bella. She was just a teenager but had been forced to act like a nurse, a caretaker, and the only adult in the situation. Bella knew how to handle medical equipment, clean up after her mom, and explain her condition better than most people in hospitals. But she wasn't just smart, she was tired of her act. Bella confronted her and tried to convince her that Samantha had to realize her life was in danger. But Samantha said happiness mattered more than living longer. Samantha was just saying what so many addicted people believe, that the thing hurting them is also the only thing keeping them going. Food just helped her survive another day. It did not really bring her any joy. Every time a diet was introduced, it felt like a punishment to her. And every food delivery was her way of holding on to control. What made her story so hard to look away from was how deeply trauma, addiction, and the internet had trapped her. But then it was her own health that forced her to leave her addiction. Samantha's brutal road to weight loss. The kidney stones were just the beginning. What started as a routine hospital visit for Samantha quickly revealed the toll her 940-pound body was taking on every organ system. The medical staff discovered she was not just dealing with kidney issues. Her chest hurt constantly. She could not control her bladder anymore, and simple tasks like sitting up left her gasping for air. The woman who had once managed short walks around her house was now completely bedridden. She required round-the-clock nursing care for basic human functions. Dr. Now had seen patients gain weight in hospitals before, but never 140 pounds in 6 weeks. During their phone conversation, Samantha admitted she was ordering food constantly, sometimes multiple meals per day from different restaurants. She couldn't explain why she did it, only that she could not stop doing it. That's when Dr. Now made a decision that broke every rule in his medical practice. Instead of waiting for Samantha to lose enough weight to travel safely to Houston, he decided to bring the surgery to her. Flying to perform gastric sleeve surgery at her local hospital was risky on multiple levels. The facility was not equipped for bariatric procedures, and operating on a patient of her size required specialized equipment they didn't have. But Dr. Now recognized that waiting was not an option anymore. Samantha was too sick to survive much longer without intervention. The surgery was technically challenging, but it was successful. Within months, nearly 300 pounds melted away as her stomach, now the size of a small pouch, physically prevented the massive food intake that had sustained her weight. But what surprised everyone, including Samantha herself, was how difficult life became without food as her primary coping mechanism. She went into depression again. For decades, eating had been her solution to every emotional crisis. Suddenly, with her stomach drastically reduced, food could no longer serve those purposes. She felt raw and exposed, like someone had stripped away her emotional armor. The sneaking behaviors returned, not because she was hungry, but because she desperately needed the psychological comfort that eating provided. This is where many patients on the show fail, and Dr. Now knew it. Surgery can restrict food intake, but it cannot heal the emotional wounds that drive people to food in the first place. Samantha was referred to intensive therapy to address the childhood trauma and depression that had caused her eating behaviors for over 30 years. It was slow, painful work that required her to develop entirely new ways of managing stress and emotions. The setbacks continued. A severe leg infection landed her back in the hospital. This medical condition threatened to derail her progress completely. But something had shifted in Samantha's mindset. Even while dealing with medical complications, she continued following her eating plan. By this time, she had begun to believe she deserved a healthy life. Month by month, the numbers dropped. She crossed under 500 pounds, then 400. Her recent TikTok update reveals she now weighs 373 pounds. This means she has lost over 600 pounds from her highest weight. But the transformation is beyond her physical health. Samantha has reclaimed her role as a mother and rediscovered reasons to live beyond just existing. So, what began as a medical emergency turned into one of the show's most remarkable success stories. If you want to hear more unbelievable stories like this, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. We will come back soon with more. Goodbye for now.